and welcome back. We're going to move into our next segment of the EIV system training, which is going to focus on the effective use of the EIV system. And I want to talk about the streamlined verification process in the context of what is upfront income verification. You all are familiar with this term, UIV, and what it basically is a verification technique which allows housing authorities to rely on information that is obtained from a database that's maintained by the actual source. Like, for example, your employers, they keep their data in a database. And a lot of you have found that over the years, you would rather have them send a payroll report rather than that third-party handwritten documentation because you want to be able to see the pay stubs. Well, the upfront income verification technique is nothing more than what we classify as automated written third-party verification. It's information that is maintained uniformly and consistently in a database by an entity. So, in a nutshell, EIV is what we call automated third-party verification in plain layman's terms. EIV equals UIV. Woo! Teach that new algorithmic equation to your kids and see if they know what EIV. They're like, that's that new trigonometry. So now I want to talk about use of EIV as a third-party source because the rule says you're going to use EIV as a third-party source. Now, as we talked earlier, we realized that the wage information is old. The intent is not for you to use EIV to do income calculations, but to help validate information. And so you're going to be verifying tenant-reported family income. And so what you're basically going to be doing is minimizing the need to have to pursue the traditional third-party verification. You're using EIV as third-party source to validate what the family has reported or not reported. Now, the good news is that for EIV, for Social Security benefits, you're simply going to go into EIV and the information in EIV will be there. You'll simply print out the EIV income report. If the tenant doesn't dispute the EIV information, you're going to use the reported Social Security information only. So you don't have to tell your tenants to go and get the Social Security benefit award letter unless the tenant disputes the EIV information. For wages, you're going to use EIV plus current pay stubs, and we have case studies, and we're going to walk you through this process. Basically, if EIV says that Bubba works at the Home Depot, you're going to print out the EIV information. You're going to ask Bubba to provide you with the current pay stubs, current and consecutive pay stubs. You're not going to have to do anything else. Also, remember, EIV lets you know when someone has started a new job. However, sometimes the hire date might not be in there. If the tenant has a document from the employer saying when they got hired, or they have their ID card and it says hire date, you can just make a photocopy of that and put it in the file. The notion here is to reduce administrative burdens in verifying the income process by relying on documents that are in the possession of the tenant but generated by a third party, okay? And we have guidance that's forthcoming via a PIH notice, and I expect to have that out sometime during February. So to streamline the verification process, we're saying that tenant-provided documents from a third party is acceptable. For example, pay stubs. For example, bank statements. Okay? They're in the possession of the tenant, but your tenant didn't make that bank statement. It was generated by the bank. The bank is a third-party source. Okay? So you wouldn't have to pursue the traditional third party where you send out that little verification form, fax it, mail it, and wait and pray that it comes back and have that little yellow sticky on there, pending verification. We're going to eliminate all that. See, people are like, oh my goodness, I love her. Because a lot of y'all going to put Post-it out of business because you won't be needing them in the income verification process any longer, okay? Because the only reason you're going to have to pursue the traditional third-party verification is, one, if the tenant disputes EIV information, okay, or if the tenant is unable to provide the documentation. Let's say the tenant comes in, oh, I don't have the documents. So if the tenant doesn't have the documents that you need, then you would have to pursue the traditional third-party verification, which is sending that request form via fax or mail or what have you. And so if you'll notice here, there's basically the three scenarios. Tenant is unable to provide documents as requested by the housing authority. The tenant provided documents are not acceptable to the PHA. And again, that kind of goes back to what we mentioned earlier. If the documents that they bring forth are not originals, or they look altered or mutilated or forged, you do not have to accept those documentations. Now, you can have a tenant that disputes EIV information, but they provide you with documentation that's acceptable to you that will support or support their denial of the EIV information. And we're going to talk about that in our case study. Your EIV is really there to validate tenant reported income, okay? You should not be using the quarterly wage information to do your income calculations for current re-exams, okay? So like, for example, if you're now working on a May 2010 re-exam, if you go into EIV, you're going to see quarter 2 of 09. Why on earth would we want you to use data from September 09 today in January to project forward? We want you to use current documentation to do your projections going forward, okay? So we have guidelines, and because we want to make sure we try to reduce administrative burdens, the refinement rule says that you'll use EIV as prescribed by HUD and guidance, and so the HUD guidance is coming out solidifying what I'm telling to you today and what I have been telling you, because remember, this is not new to you all. We've been talking about streamlining the income verification process now for about 3 or 4 years, and so we are RAB, and we're going to put it in writing. So, a lot of you have said, hey, I'm not doing that until you get it in writing. So now it's going to be in writing. The refinement rule says you'll use EIV as prescribed, by HUD, and we're prescribing a manner that's going to help you to reduce administrative burden, okay? Next thing here is that when the tenant disputes the EIV data, the housing authority is required to request written third-party verification if your tenant is unable to provide documentation, okay? And I want you to turn to your handouts. There's a tab called, should be HUD Regulations. And the very first one there is 24 CFR Part 5, Section 236, which focuses on procedures for termination, denial, suspension, or reduction of assistance based on information obtained from a SWCA or federal agency. I know many of you are not familiar with this HUD regulation, but what this regulation says that if the housing authority obtains information through computer matching, which EIV is, the tenant, if the tenant disputes, you have to resolve that dispute. And we're going to go through the income discrepancy resolution process later on, but I want you to be familiar with this because basically the tenant has the right to provide you with documentation to support their dispute. And if you can't hash it out, then you're required. Because I got an email just yesterday and said, well, why I got to send a verification? That's the tenant's responsibility. Yes and no. When you're dealing with disputed information that is derived from a computer matching program, if that tenant is not able to provide you with evidence to support their claim that this is invalid information, you must. This is not an option. You must send out the third-party verification. And we're going to go over this in one of our case studies. Now, the purpose of the EIV report is, again, for you to validate what the family has reported. So you're going to use the EIV report to basically compare it to what the family has reported. And hopefully when you look at the EIV report and you look at what the family has reported, there is no disparity or difference between what they said and what EIV said. If you see something that you're not seeing reported by the family, then you're going to go through a discrepancy resolution process, which is really to get to the bottom of what is this information here and confirming whether or not it's valid or invalid. And we're going to talk about that. I can't reiterate enough. If there's a discrepancy, you're going to talk with your tenant, provide them an opportunity to provide you with any evidence to support their claim about this information, and if that's not resolvable that way, then you would have to go out and do your traditional third-party verification. The goal here is to rely on the most reliable information that you can get your hands on to do the annual reexamination. So if you can't get, the pay stubs or other documents from your family that are current, then you're going to do the traditional third-party verification and have that information come in, and you use basically the most reliable information to do your income calculation. So it's very, very straightforward and simple. Now, I always put this regulation in the slides, and you also have a copy of it in your HUD regulation section of this material. The family must, and you see the operative word in the sentence, the family, the tenant, must supply any information that the housing authority deems necessary in determining eligibility level of assistance during any type of interim or annual reexamination. And remember, we talked earlier about roles and responsibilities. It is the responsibility of the family to submit complete and accurate information, and if you need additional information to support your determination, the family has to provide whatever it is that you ask for. Now, don't ask for anything that you don't have any business asking for that doesn't pertain to determining the eligibility or level of assistance, okay? So I just want to know, some of you all, I didn't know about this HUD regulation back when I was at my housing authority, and they're like, well, why I got to give you this information? I'm like, look, I just don't want to put no more stickies here on my table, pending verification, all this stuff, so just give me the information, okay? Had I known about this one, I would have put that as a big poster on the front door, okay? But, make it simple. Got documents, got housing. Okay, rejection of tenant-provided documents. We covered this earlier, but again, acceptable reasons for rejecting documents. If it's not an original, if it's torn, mutilated, or appears to be forgery, just Kim and keep it moving. Okay, benefits of EIV. Number one, improve program integrity. We're trying to identify and prevent fraud and abuse within the program. EIV is going to help you do that. It's going to ensure limited federal dollars serves as many families as possible. Very simple. It's going to also, I want you all to go back and just write RAB on your door. Reduce administrative burden, RAB. EIV is going to help reduce postage costs because you're not going to have to send out those written third-party verifications. You're not going to have to waste any money with the fax and the phones, okay? You're not going to, and did you hear about Walgreens? Walgreens now charges, I think, $25 for verification of pharmacy. Did y'all see that one? No. Oh, yeah. What's that? Walgreens now charges for verification of, you know how they get the little printout of their medical expenses? Yeah. It's like $25 now. Okay, so all I'm saying to you is that we are creating an environment in which you can reduce those costs. And now I always tell folks, you don't incur costs that don't make sense. Okay, so if it's going to cost you $75 to verify $2, that's really not cost effective. No. You need to keep those dollars in your pocket and keep it moving, all right? Okay, so the other thing is that EIV is going to help to also get away from what we call ambiguity in third-party verification documents. And in plain layman's term, you know those written third-party verification documents that come in and they don't quite add up? And you're like, well, man, I'm looking at your current pay stub and it say your year-to-date earnings is $8,000, but on this written documentation here, I'm adding up the numbers. They only come to $4,565.24. Some of you all have some individuals who have intercepted that third-party verification, and I will never forget. See, I didn't know back then that written third-party verification should be mailed or faxed. And I say, well, look, Ms. Smith, since you're going to your job right now, you just take this form and have them fill it out. I learned really quickly because I went out into the hallway and Miss Smith was sitting there and she was like, I think I put 200 here and 100 here. So the thing is that we're trying to get away from somebody handwriting those forms because there's really no way to validate what is written on there. I could be looking at numbers forever and a day, and that 1 starts looking like the 7 starts looking like a 9. I was looking at line 50. I should have been looking at 51, and I done wrote the wrong information down. You can never go wrong with black and white payroll reports, pay stubs, as long as they're original and legit. Okay? So we're going to minimize having to deal with those folks who are intercepting the third-party verification and filling it out for themselves, or you have some employers, they just don't understand what's being asked of them, and they just write whatever. They like, look, dang, I got 50 of these on my desk. Everybody getting 500, 500, 500. Just right. Okay. Lastly, we all know the headache. Third-party verification. I done send it out 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. Hi, this is Mary from the Housing Authority of the City of D.C., and I'm calling to follow up on this verification. I mean, this is the 75th time that I've sent it to you. You minimize all of that, okay? She said, I'm not going to fax it no more. Okay, so disclosure of EIV information. This information is to be used for the sole purpose of determining eligibility and level of assistance for the public housing or Section 8 programs. It may not be disclosed to third parties for any other purposes, and I do realize that there are similar programs in your state. Say like, hey, you know, Sally, I know you do verifications. Can you send me y'all EIV information because I'm trying to determine she valid for food stamps. Mary, I really love you, but TBSSSS, I just can't do it. Too bad, so sad, so sorry, okay? This information is only to be used for purposes determining eligibility and level of assistance for the HUD rental assistance programs. Now, if your tenant specifically puts in writing and authorizes you to disclose that information on their behalf to these individuals, then you can do it. But without this implicit written consent of your tenant for any other purposes, you cannot disclose it. Excuse me. Now, I want to caution you, and I've cautioned you before, and I only do this because I care about you. Purposes outside of HUD rental assistance programs, you may want to say, look, I'll give it to you, and you can give it to them. Excuse me. So are we clear on that? The flu bug bit me. Excuse me. Okay, disclosure of EIV. It may only be disclosed to the individual to whom it pertains to. So that means Mary's information only goes to Mary. For a minor, it may only be disclosed to a parent or guardian. Your PHA hired auditors. Notice we have that here. Excuse me. Your auditors may review the information in the tenant files. However, they cannot have access to the EIV system. Your auditors, for the purposes of determining program compliance, can view the EIV information that's in the folder, but no access. Other thing I want to point out, your individuals who are going to access EIV information electronically or in printed format, not physically going into the system, they are now going to be required to sign the EIV access authorization form. We have a new version of the form that's going to carry an OMB approval number. The Federal Register notice was published, I believe, yesterday or the day before. I can't remember exactly. But this week it was published. The EIV access authorization form will be required by all system users and those individuals who will view, printed, or electronic EIV information to ensure that they understand the applicable administrative, technical, and physical safeguards that need to be in place to protect that information. And you'll just simply maintain that on the file. I'm sorry, we're going to take a minute here. Thank you.
All right, I'm sorry about that interruption, but we are back. Now I want to get into disclosure of EIV information, particularly as it applies to the Section 8 program. A lot of PHAs want to know when a family is porting from one housing authority to another, can I give them the EIV information? And actually the answer is yes, and it is a requirement. And here is the HUD regulation, 24 CFR 982-355, subparagraph C4. PHA must, see the emphasis on must, provide the receiving PHA the most recent 5.8 and the related verification information. Remember, related information is going to include EIV. So you need to make sure that you're providing the EIV information for portability families. So I don't need to see any more questions about portability because here's your HUD regulation that says you must do it, okay? I just caution you, just make sure that you're protecting yourself and when you send the information, make sure you know who you're sending it to, okay? Because you don't want that information to get misplaced or fall into the wrong hands. Okay, now we're going to get into the income report, how to use it. And one of the things I wanted to emphasize here, the housing authorities are going to be required to maintain the EIV income report in the tenant file folder. That is going to be evidence to HUD that you are using EIV. So here's the deal. For each annual re-exam that you do, you will have the EIV income report for the household in the file folder with your annual re-examination documentations. If you do an interim re-examination, if there is no income discrepancy for the family, all you need to do is print the ICN page or individual control number page and put that in the file folder. Again, the intent here of you using EIV during annuals and interim re-exams is to make sure that you're aware of any income information that's coming up in EIV and to validate that what the family has reported to you at the annual or the interim is true and correct. Now keep in mind, EIV's new hire information comes in every single month. Okay, so you could have a family come in and say, you know, hey, I lost my job, I'm getting unemployment. No problem. They've got the notice from the unemployment office that they were laid off. You see they got the monthly or biweekly unemployment compensation coming in. But some of you will find that, oh, Mary went back to work, but didn't tell you. But EIV's new hires report is telling you, hey, you know, Mary just got a job over there at Macy's on January the 12th, okay? So the whole point here in using EIV is to make sure that you're aware of things that are going on with the household's income, again, to ensure that you're doing accurate income determinations. If there is an income discrepancy,
And you can easily determine whether or not a family is discrepant when they come in for the interim, because remember, you're going to put in a Social Security number. That income, that screen comes up showing the summary report, the income report, the certification page, and the income discrepancy tab. You're just going to click on the income discrepancy tab. If there's nothing there, then you know there's no discrepancy. So you would just do the ICN page, put that in your file folder. That tells HUD that you checked EIV when you did that re-examination of income. However, if you click on the income discrepancy tab and there's a discrepancy, then you know you got to print the report and you're going to have to resolve the discrepancy with the family before you make the rent recalculation. It's very simple. Annual re-exam, you're going to print the full report. If it's an interim, if there's no discrepancy, just print the ICN page. What's coming in April, you'll be able to print the ICN page or an income report with the ICN page for a batch families by the re-examination month. So that's coming in April. If there's no discrepancy, just print the ICN page. If there's discrepancy, just print the income report. Very simple. For each new admission, you need, and this is why you need to notify your applicants about EIV. Even though you can't verify their income at the time of application, that applicant needs to know that once you're admitted into the program, once the PHA sends that 5-8 form to PIC, HUD is going to get your data within 30 days, okay? And so what HUD wants you to do to ensure that the information provided to you at the time of application and admission is correct, we want you to run EIV within 90 days of the admission date, okay? There's no point in you waiting 9 months, 10 months down the road to do the first annual to learn that Mary really was not working, or that she had a job, or that she was receiving some kind of income that wasn't reported. So for new admissions, within 90 days of the move-in date, you're going to pull EIV and make sure there's no discrepancy. If there's a discrepancy, guess what? What are you doing? Come on in, Peggy. Come on down. The price is right. Okay, you're going to resolve any income discrepancies with that family within 30 days. Okay? This is what HUD is going to be prescribing in the PIH notice that's forthcoming for your new admissions. Again, this is to catch the fraud before it gets out of hand, or if there's an error, to fix it before it gets out of hand. It's a whole lot easier for Mary to repay $200 than to try and pay $2,400. Okay? For any housing authorities, sometimes, you know, you have little snafus with PIC and you can't get your 5-8 in when the family moved in, and it might be 6 or 7 months before you get them in. So you'll transmit a 14 historical adjustment transaction. If you transmit any 5/8 that's coded as a 14, you're going to be required to review the income report for that family within 90 days of transmitting that 14 adjustment to make sure that everything is okay. If there is a discrepancy, again, you're going to follow up with that family within 30 days of printing the actual EIV income report for that family, okay? So that's the protocol that has been established. And again, it's going to be outlined in a PIH notice, but I wanted to give you heads up as to what our expectation is. So again, you're using the report to compare your EIV reported income information. If EIV reveals an income source that was not reported by the family, or there's a substantial difference between tenant reported and EIV reported information, that's considered a discrepancy. Anything $2,400 or greater annually, HUD is flagging that as a discrepancy, and you're expected to resolve that issue. Now, there are going to be some false positive scenarios, but if it's not a valid, discrepancy, you're just going to document that you've resolved and it's not valid, and you're just going to keep it moving. Okay, very simple. The other thing I want to point out, again, families coming in reporting their income, you're looking at EIV, you're going to ask the tenant to provide documentation, you're going to use the current pay stubs to do the income calculations. Okay, here's the income discrepancy resolution process. I don't really have to explain this to you because you guys are already doing it, because it's just common sense, which is if there's something that doesn't, if something shows up that you haven't seen before, you're going to talk about it with the tenant. I mean, I haven't yet come across a housing authority staff person that says, gee, look at here, they got an $80,000 income discrepancy. I'm not even going to ask them no questions about that. They still receiving this $500 a month Social Security benefit, so I'm just going to keep it moving. I'm not asking nothing. Most of you are like, what? Oh, no, I'm calling them in. Some of y'all don't even wait. You just, like, make a home visit and show up on the door and interrupt Jerry Springer, you know. And you're like, we need to talk, Peggy. You're going to request the tenant to provide any documentation to confirm or dispute the EIV information. And if the tenant is unable to provide acceptable documentation, you're going to pursue the traditional third-party verification. It's very simple, straightforward. You're already doing this, okay? Now, the other thing I want to point out is that in the event that the family did not report the correct income, you as a PHA have to redetermine how much they should have been paying, okay? The family is required to repay you that money, okay? Now, I know you're like, okay, I know they're supposed to repay the money, but the likelihood of them repaying the money is another story, but we're going to talk about that, okay? The bottom line is you have to let your families know they're responsible for reporting their income, and if they don't report it, you have to go back and determine what the correct rent should have been, okay? And if you'll notice here, the tenant is required to reimburse the housing authority for the difference between the rent that should have been paid and the rent that was charged. So, you know, if you determine, you know, okay, the HAP contribution was going to be $500 and theirs was $200, and their $200 really should have been $500, then they owe you $300 per month for the time that they underpaid their contribution. So whether it's public housing or Section 8, the bottom line is that when they pay the incorrect portion, that money that is owed from the past is retroactive rent, okay? If the tenant refuses to enter into a repayment agreement, what has to happen, my friends? Adios. Gotta go. Cannot stay in the program and not pay. Remember my motto? You gotta pay to stay, my friend. Okay? Unfortunately, I know a lot of you like to try and do goodwill efforts and say, okay, well, we're gonna forgive you if you didn't, you know, pay this. HUD does not authorize amnesty programs where you can, you know, say, hey, you know, you owe $50,000 and we're gonna write off the $40,000. The statute requires the family to pay 30% of adjusted income or 10% of annual income, the welfare rent or the minimum rent, whichever is greater, okay? That is statutorily required. You cannot come back and say, oh, well, I know you should have paid $500, but we're going to make it $200. You can't negotiate this. This is not like, you know, standard debt collection efforts where, you know, you owe JCPenney $1,000 and you haven't paid them in forever, and then you say, well, look here, I've got my tax check coming. I'll give you $200. You just write off the rest. And they say, oh, sure, no thing, because they just bought the debt for pennies on the dollars. It doesn't work like that in this program. So they need to understand if they underpaid, they have to repay, okay? And you see where I'm going with this because it's kind of leading up to the debts owed piece. A family terminated from a PIH program may not receive future rental assistance until the debt is repaid to the housing authority. Now let's get into our case studies. Okay, the very first one is kind of like a simple one. Here we want you to verify Social Security benefits. If you go to, there's a tab there called Case Studies. Okay, and if you will look at page 1 of the case study, here is your EIV income report for the family. And what we want to know here is, how will you use EIV to streamline the income verification process? 2, how do you use EIV to comply with the new regulatory requirement that you use EIV? And then how would you determine the family's annual income? And I know I probably should have told you to bring a calculator, but I made it real simple, okay? And what you're going to do here is you're simply reviewing the EIV report, okay? You'll see here that Jane is receiving $741 a month gross. See the benefit history on the right, and then her net benefit amount is $741. Okay? So you ask Jane, hey, Jane, EIV is saying that as of December 09, you get $741. Do you agree or disagree? Oh, yeah, I get $741. So you're just going to take the $741 times 12. Okay? And that comes to $8,892. And then, of course, to demonstrate your ability to comply with the EIV mandated, what are you going to do to show HUD that you used EIV? Exactly. You're going to put the EIV income report in the tenant file folder. You're done. Now, if she had disputed the information, it would be a different story. But see how simple that is? You're going to consult EIV. She reports that she's getting the $741. There's no employment information. There's no wage information. There's no dual entitlement where she's receiving benefits under somebody else's Social Security number. She's simply getting $741. See how simple that is? Okay, so the bonus question for this case study is her annual income is $8,892. What is her adjusted annual income? This is an elderly, disabled family. Exactly. See how easy that is? Everybody gets an A. $84.92. Okay, case study number 2. Now, let me go back just a second. Because some of you, if you're looking at the case study 1, notice that the buy-in premium says yes, $110.50, which means that supposedly that $110.50 is being paid by a third party. But it's not. You know why? Even though it says that it's yes, obviously SSA hasn't updated their information because actually I'm sorry, it is $110.50. She's not paying that $110.50. Okay? And so she doesn't get the medical deduction for the $110.50. And let me back it up, make sure you got it. When the gross and the net benefit amount is the same, and the premium buy-in says yes, that means that that premium is being paid on behalf of her by a third party. And remember, in order for you to get a deduction for medical expenses, they have to be out-of-pocket expenses. The individual has to actually reach in the pocket and pay. Okay, so I just want to draw your attention because a lot of people see that $110.50 for medical insurance, and your first reaction is to take $110.50 times 12 and then do the 3% threshold test. But when you see Medicare premium buy-in yes, it means it's being paid by a third party. Okay, let's go to case study 2. Case study 2 is a scenario verifying, again, Social Security benefits, but notice here that the gross benefit is $11,1740. The net is $1021 for my favorite tenant, Bubba Jones. Okay? Again, we want to demonstrate how you're going to use the EIV system to streamline the income verification process, document your efforts to comply with the mandated EIV use, and then determine the family's annual income. So here, you're like, oh, okay, $117.40. The difference between that gross and that net is the $96.40. Okay? But this is a tricky one because it says the buy-in is yes, but the stop date was March 1st, 09. So if you saw the buy-in yes, you say, oh, well, the $96.40 is being paid on behalf of a third party, but look at the gross and the net. The difference is the $96.40, which means the person is paying it out of their pocket. So even though this report says that this being paid on behalf of a third party, you know that it's not the case because the difference between the gross and the net is exactly the $96.40, which is being paid. And it says the stop date was March 1st, 09. It's just that this, the database at SSA hadn't been updated to change that back to a no. Okay? So with that being said, you're going to review this income report. You're going to ask Bubba if he confirms or, agrees or disagrees with the EIV information. Bubba says, look, I agree with that. But Bubba says, no, I don't pay any out-of-pocket medical expenses. Even though Bubba told you no, you know that he does because the $96.40 is coming out of his check. Okay? So what I want you to do is, and I know it's kind of hard, but I'm going to help you with this one. You determine his annual income, again, by taking the gross benefit amount of the $11,1740, multiplying that by 12, which is going to give you $13,409. Now, his adjusted annual income is not going to be, is not A, and it's not C. It's B. And if you look down at the calculation at the bottom of page 3 of case study 2, you'll see that what we do here is that his allowable medical expenses is calculated at $755 by taking the 3% of his gross and subtracting out the actual medical $1157 minus the $402 and then the $400 elderly deduction. So I just want to alert you that sometimes you can't just look at, data statuses and say, oh, well, anytime it's yes, this is what I'm going to do, and anytime it's no, I'm going to do this. Always look at the gross and the net benefit, because it could be that the data just has not been updated, and that was the case with this particular case study. Okay. So now, we're getting ready to get into the hard one. Verifying wages. Okay? Now, this is going to be a simple one. We're on case study 3. We're verifying employment information. Now, in this particular scenario, the family reports the wages from Elm Corporation. She doesn't dispute any of the EIV information. Head of household is not elderly or disabled. And then other information, you're provided with the current biweekly pay stubs dated January the 29th and January 15th and the year-to-date earnings. So here we want to know, again, how are you going to streamline the income verification process here? So she's agreeing with what EIV is saying. Notice that the last wage information is Q2 of 09. That's too old to use to project income for a May 2010 re-exam. You've got her current pay stubs. What are you going to do? Exactly. You're going to take those current pay stubs and you're going to project the income forward. Yeah. Do you need to send off the third party to Elm Corporation? No. For what? EIV tells you she works at Elm. You see that if you look at the employment information, there's no indication that she's picked up another job. She has no unemployment, no Social Security, no dual entitlement. This is the perfect case scenario. Everybody's in agreement. You got the pay stubs, so you're going to take the pay stubs, keep it moving. Kim. See how simple that is? So if you'll go to the solution on page 3, notice here that I'm showing you 2 calculations. Now, of course, income calculations kind of is an art and not a science. All depends on how you've been trained. The bottom line is making sure you do it the same for everybody. You can't have these little, for the lady that comes in with the blue hair, we're going to do the calculation this way, and for the ones that come in with brown hair, we're going to do it this way. You can't do that. So you'll notice that most people are familiar with method number 1. Mary comes in, she gives 2 pay stubs. You take the gross earnings off of each pay stub, add them together, divide by 2. Come up with the average biweekly pay. You multiply that by 26 pays per year, and you come up with $10,075 annual wages. Absolutely correct. Now, some people like myself, I love mathematics. In particular, if you come to me in July, I love it even better. July, you come in with your pay stub. I take your year-to-date earnings, and I have my big calendar on the wall, and I'm like, okay, you get paid bi-weekly. This paycheck is dated this date. And I go back and count how many times you've been paid year to date, and I divide your year-to-date earnings by the number of times you've been paid to date and come up with your average biweekly amount and then multiply that by 26. Now, let me tell you why I personally like that methodology, because it takes into consideration overtime, bonuses, and all that good stuff. Now, granted, it doesn't work well in the months of January, February, and March. But for those later months, you get a real sense of what the person is earning. Okay, it's hard to project overtime. It's hard to project bonuses. And so to be fair, you're using actual information and projecting versus, the employer says, well, I think she's going to get a bonus, but maybe not. Okay, so this is another method. There's no right or wrong way as long as you can show how you got to your number and it's logical and it makes sense and the auditor can follow you. Okay, this is why I tell people, I know I'm old school. I had the little 10-key calculator and I'd be in it and rip off the tape and tape it and staple it to the file folder and keep it moving, okay? Nobody can ever question how things were calculated unless my finger slipped and I made a boo-boo, okay? See how simple that is? So here, we've calculated that. Now, let's move on to case study 4. Now we're getting into a little tricky. Now, some of you all have, and I'm going to tell you, nationwide, about 25% of your families are not going to be so forthcoming with their information. So this training is going to help you address those individuals. So here you have a scenario where the family has come in, you've consulted with the EIV system, and you've got this EIV report. The tenant is disputing the EIV information. How are you going to use EIV to streamline the income verification process, determine the family's annual income, okay, and then demonstrate your ability to comply with the regulatory requirement of mandated EIV use? So take a moment, and I'm going to give you a little time on this one because, this has got a little history here. So I want you to take a look, page 1 and page 2, which is the income report for this family. And while you're taking a look at this is Miss Mary Contrary over at the County Housing Agency. Now, I want you to know, as I always tell you, because y'all remember my episode Law and Order EIV, because I'm a Law and Order addict. So Law and Order EIV, this was one of those scenarios where family said, hey, look, Miss Faison, I don't have any income from working. What I do is I babysit, Sasha's children. And, I babysit little Beyonce. And I get $444 from her annually. I don't have no other income from anywhere else. Now look at the EIV report, my friends. So, of course, you're going to ask her, well, wait a minute, Miss Contrary. I see that you started SunTrust Bank on January 26, 2009. She's like, I don't work there, never worked there. Who, me? And so what ends up happening is that you will send off the third-party verification since she's disputing and she doesn't have any documentation to give you to refute this. And notice that she's got, looks like, employment in 09, didn't do anything in 08, but this to me demonstrates, the individual does have a tendency to be employed at certain points in time. And so you send off the third-party verification. And look here on the back of page 2, third-party verification comes back from SunTrust and confirms all of the EIV reported information. She got hired in January 2609. She's still working there today in 2010. And by the way, here's her gross earnings from her last 2 paychecks. And here's her quarter 309 wages, and here's her quarter 409 wages. So, now that you've got that little bit of information, okay, you are basically going to rely on what the employer has provided to you, which is they gave you that payroll history for 09 and her current earnings in 2010. And so you're going to use that current pay stubs to do the May 2010 re-exam, okay? And so you're determining her annual income. And of course, when you tell Ms. Contrary that, hey, we've confirmed that you're working, you have any other income you want to report? Oh, no. I don't even babysit for for Sasha no more. So you're going to calculate the annual income because you're going to have Sasha provide a notarized statement that she no longer provides babysitting services. And so you're going to calculate the annual income like we discussed earlier, which is doing your pay stub calculations. And so her correct annual income going forward, May 2010, is $16,683 versus $444. So now let's go on to case study 5, because here is where you get to the income discrepancy resolution process. Now, we know what the deal is going forward, but you already have said that we have a problem. The problem is that you know that there was income that was not reported in 2009, okay? Here is the 5/8 information for Mary Contrary, okay? Household of 2. The income was reported as another non-wage source, 444. Y'all see on page 1, what's the problem on this 5/8 in the income section? Why is the income of 444 excluded? I don't know why. That's a boo-boo. That non-wage income from babysitting should not be excluded. There's no statutory or regulatory provision that would justify the exclusion of the money she's earning from babysitting, okay? And this is a Section 8 tenant, okay? Now you see the landlord Hubba Bubba was getting half of $471, okay, and she was paying $29 because of the utility allowance, okay? Everybody see that on page 3? But now that we know that 444 wasn't her correct, what we need to do is go back and calculate, had you reported this income from SunTrust, what you should have been paying. Okay, all right now, because you know a lot of people trying to get a voucher, and guess what? You all have overpaid for this family, and that money could have helped that next family on your waiting list. So see why it's important to resolve these income discrepancies? Because when you resolve them, it's going to help you house another family. Okay, so let's get to it. The rent underpayment, and if you look at the 5/8, the period of the rent underpayment is actually 7/1/09 through April 30th, 2010. And the reason that is because, see, this 5/8 was effective 7/1/09. She came in for an interim. She shouldn't have done that. Okay? She came in for the interim, and really she should have had income being reported for SunTrust. And so if you look at the calculation of how we calculate her correct rent, her correct income was $17,586. Now, y'all notice, huh? Oh, no. See, here, let me tell you about retro rents. We don't subtract out income. We only add for retros. Now, you lied and said that you was reporting this 444. You can't come back now because you got caught and say, oh, that's why I put this case study in here, because, see, when you do retros, you don't subtract out. Because you gave me a certified statement and you signed under the penalties of perjury that I babysit, and Sasha gives me $444 to babysit little Beyonce. So we're not subtracting out $444. Now you can tell me today going forward that you don't babysit, and Sasha's going to give me a notarized statement today, but you can't come back today and tell me that what you gave me last year was a lie, and then Sasha going to give me something saying that what she gave me last year was a lie. Y'all got to start watching Judge Judy. Okay, so notice here the HAP to the owner would have been $93. Okay, her correct rent should have been $407, not $29. So you take the difference between the correct and the incorrect, okay, $378 is what she should have been paying. That for 10 months comes out to $3,780. And so now what you're going to do is say, okay, Ms. Contrary, cash, check, or charge? Okay, so you're going to offer a repayment plan. You're going to execute a repayment plan. And if she doesn't want to execute the repayment plan or repayment agreement, hasta la vista. You have to pay to stay. Now, other options that the housing authority could take is you could also refer her over to your state or local federal prosecutor for not reporting this income, which could result in Ms. Contreras receiving some new jewelry, platinum bracelets with a little chain link in between it. You can let her know that her voucher has been terminated and that her new home may be in the county or federal penitentiary. And she could face some penalties as determined by the judicial proceedings should one ensue. Now, I'm going to let you know right now, there are approximately 422,000 families nationwide who have failed to report complete and accurate information. Of the 422,000, there are 122,000 families with what I call egregious unreported income. And HUD will be very proactive in pursuing those cases for prosecution. Okay, so I want you to know, we want you to pursue these cases. And when you run your income discrepancy report, you need to be running it at the 100% threshold so you can get those big bangs for the buck. Okay? Those folks either need to pay up or get out of the program so that the next eligible family can benefit from that voucher or benefit from that public housing unit. Okay? So that is case study number 5. Now, of course, Ms. Contreras owes you $37.80. So we want her to enter into a repayment agreement. We all know that logistically, some families that enter into a repayment agreement may not pay. Some people will enter into a repayment agreement and disappear in the middle of the night. Okay? So we're going to talk in a moment about the debts owed module, but I want to get into monitoring deceased tenants because with EIV mandated use, HUD is monitoring the deceased tenants. Here we want to make sure you're avoiding paying HAP on behalf of deceased individuals. And you know I have been talking about this for many, many years now because once upon a time, HUD issued an OIG audit finding, and that audit finding was HUD houses dead people. Now, if you've been reading the OIG reports, report number FW-2010-0001 is a most recent report issued on November 29th, 2009, which has cited that HUD has overpaid subsidy by $7 million on behalf of single-member deceased households. So because of that and because of the fact that EIV is now mandated, housing authorities are required to generate and review the deceased tenants report on a monthly basis, okay? And you're going to, for Section 8, you're going to review that report before you cut the HAP check, okay? And if there's a single-member deceased household, you need to put a freeze on the HAP check before you send it. And we're going to talk about what you're going to do. For public housing, you're going to generate your report prior to you generating your monthly rent roll because I know some of you still collect rents on the properties and y'all have little lady with the little register and she has the rent roll and so she needs to know that somebody's deceased because somebody's going to come in and try and pay that rent and, you know, keep up with the unit even though there's nobody really authorized to be in there. So here's what you do if there's a family on the deceased tenants report, and we're on slide number 95. You're going to immediately contact the head of household. Now, I am creating a standardized letter that you can send out to the family. Did y'all get my new hires letter? Oh, see, this is why you got to join the PIH-RHIIP mailing list. The congratulations letter for new hires. Congratulations on your new job. That's right. We have that standardized letter for you so you can drop in your PHA letterhead. I'll send it out to you all again. Okay? Watch your mailbox. This is why you got to join the PIH-RHIIP mailing list, because I create tools for you to help make life a little easier. So we're going to have a little letter that you can send out. You know, Dear Bubba, it appears that you are no longer living. If this is not correct, please come into the office immediately. Now, of course, somebody may show up to the office and it's not even Bubba. And they're going to proclaim to be Bubba, but they're really not Bubba. But you need to follow up with the head of household, confirm. If it's the head of household and they don't show up or they don't respond to the letter, contact the next emergency contact person. You may even want to make a home visit to confirm. But the bottom line is that data comes from the Social Security Administration death match files. It has a very high accuracy rate. So if somebody shows up when they're deceased, you need to follow up. Keep in mind, my friends on public housing, don't change those locks on that unit, okay? Because the cousin might be living in there, and I hate to tell this to you, but the laws are on this side. So I keep telling you, watch Judge Judy, because you see about the wrongful eviction, you're going to be responsible if you go in there. I did it in Baltimore. I didn't get in trouble, but I could have gone to jail. I could have been sued personally, because I was like, oh, no, they ain't going to be in that unit. I went over there and changed the locks, and I was like, y'all ain't getting up in there. And my supervisor made me change the locks back. And they like, Nicole, they squatters. They got rights. I'm like, ugh. I took the law into my own hand. Don't do that. Okay, that's the wrong way. You have to follow your local tenant landlord laws, okay? The other thing I want to point out, if there's a living aide in the unit, and it's just the two of them, the living aide and the head of household dies, you got to notify the living aide, end of the month, you out of there, honey. You're not paying no more HAP. You're not entitled to this unit, okay? So you need to let them know they have to vacate the unit. Remember, by definition, the living aide would not be in the unit other than to provide services to the individual who is elderly or disabled. Exactly. The living aide has no rights, entitlement to the unit. Now, I know I'm a little sassy, so, you don't have to get all rambunctious like I do with folks. Just, let them know, I know you was helping out Miss Flossie and everything, but, since she's gone now, you'll have to vacate the unit at the end of the month and put it in writing. Okay, put it in writing. You cannot designate the living aide as the new head of household. Okay, now I'm going to let you know, there's a little scam going on, and y'all already know what this scam is. This is why I keep telling you all, you all have the right to screen who is going to be the living aide. That's right. So they will designate the living aide to be like their cousin or their brother, their mother, their husband, because the living aide income don't count. Once the living aide is the sole member, they have no entitlement to the unit, even if they're related. You're a living aide. You would not be in the unit but for the purposes of assisting the elderly disabled individual. Okay? So people got to be strategically thinking. They trying to scam the system on one end, they're going to get caught on the other end. So and there's no such thing as, I'm going to reclassify the living aide as a family member. Okay? All right, we're on the same page. Section 8 programs. You need to notify your owner in writing, and I'm also going to have a standardized form letter for you to send to the owner. Dear Hubba Bubba landlord, Miss Mary is no longer living. As such, you are no longer entitled to HAP for any month following the month in which she's deceased. So if Mary dies today, February 1, no more HAP to the landlord. Okay, it's over and done with. Okay? Also, want to remind you, I know people say, okay, they're deceased, what am I supposed to do? Immediately terminate HAP. Okay, that means that for the following month, no more HAP. So come January 31st, you're not paying any more HAP for that particular unit. Termination of assistance automatically results in termination of the HAP contract. There are no exceptions to this rule. Okay? Deceased households and remaining minor household members. Here we want to let you know, again, this is one of those areas where the housing authority needs to have establishes protocols, procedures, policies on how to deal with situations where, you know, there's a 5-member household, 1 adult, 4 children, head of household dies. What do you do? Okay? So here what you end up doing is designating, maybe a family member comes forward and says, hey, you know, I'm going to take care of these children, whatever, whatever. You still have to screen that individual. You can't just arbitrarily add them on there. You have to let the individual know they have to go through the same screening process. Remember, our goal is not to displace families. Those children need a home. So if their adult steps up to the plate and says, I'm going to take care of these 4 children, and I've gone through the process with the court, whatever, you're going to go ahead and screen them. If they pass the screening as if they were, you know, a regular applicant, you're just going to go ahead and put them as the head of household. In other instances, you will find that the local human resources or social services or, you know, children advocates agency in your community will work to establish temporary or permanent guardianship. And so, again, those individuals, you screen them, and then you just go ahead and add them on. This temporary guardian can be living in a unit temporarily until, you know, the ball is rolling with the process of establishing legal guardianship. They wouldn't, you know, be, you know, put on the lease or the, you know, family composition per se, but they would be a temporary, you know, in care of these children until you work out the logistics. Okay, and we've talked about that. Individuals reported deceased but are alive and kicking. It happens. Sometimes you'll go to the deceased tenants report and you'll see, what? I didn't know Joan died. I just saw her yesterday. She was walking her little Cocker Spaniel. If you see Joan walking the Cocker Spaniel yesterday and she's on your deceased tenants and you go and see her again today, you need to tell her to get to the Social Security Administration so she can get that corrected, okay? Only SSA can fix that error. So if you don't have a process where you make home visits, send them a letter in writing, letting them know, you know, dear Joan, we noticed that you were on the deceased tenants report, and we are aware that you are alive. You may want to follow up with Social Security Administration to get this corrected, because it's going to be a hassle for her. Now, folks always ask me, Nicole, when I fix my 5/8, and, you know, or when I do any kind of changes, when is the deceased tenants report going to be updated to reflect that they're no longer deceased? And that occurs in 2 scenarios, okay? Let's say the person really is deceased. The way the person falls off the report is when you update your 5/8 and remove the individual from the family composition. The deceased tenants report is run every weekend. So if you transmit a 5/8 today, removing Mary off of that, off of the family composition, when you pull the report on Monday, Mary's not going to be on there. Now, in the case where the individual is deceased, listed as deceased but really alive, when she goes to SSA and has that error corrected, when HUD matches again against the death match file, once SSA has corrected its files, then HUD's EIV deceased tenants report will be updated. And so it's a very simple process. Now the next few slides, and I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on here, but this is just technical assistance related to how to record information on the 5/8 for deceased single member households. You know, basically if it's a single member household, you're going to do an action type 6, end of participation, okay? And you're going to list the effective date, the date of the death. If the date of the death is NA, not applicable, that just means that data was not available from Social Security Administration. So you just put whatever date that you became aware of the deceased, or confirm with an obituary, or, you know, with the family members. So that's real simple. For your surviving adult household members, if you have a household and there's other adults in the household, you just simply delete out the deceased head of household, and you make one of those adults the new head of household and record the previous head of household Social Security number on the applicable line on the 5/8. And these slides explain what to put on each line of the 5/8. And for the situations for the deceased households, no surviving members, again, once you have established the permanent guardian or caretaker of the children, you'll add that person on to the 5/8 and take the old one off. Other household changes. If you have a situation where it's a multiple member household and there's a deceased individual, that could impact the rent. So you may have to ask a couple questions, because if the head of household died and they were receiving an income, that income needs to be subtracted out, and you need to redetermine what the family's new rent is going to be. So I just want to alert you that for those multiple member households, you may have that scenario. Retroactive payments of HAP by the owners. Excuse me. If an owner is paid HAP for any month following the month in which the death occurs, that is not an eligible HAP cost, and that money must be recouped. So you'll want to notify them in writing about those amounts. Pardon me. If your owner does not repay within 30 days, you, the housing authority, are going to have to deduct that money from the next HAP check if there's any other eligible HAP contracts. Let's say hypothetically there are no more HAP contracts. Then you're going to have to pursue it through legal proceedings. See how simple that is? It's pretty straightforward. And these are just examples to show you how to calculate the retroactive HAP repayments. Now we want to get into owner breach of contract. HUD has established some criteria that if there's someone deceased and they've been deceased longer than a period of 6 months, that will constitute a breach of HAP contract. There are some landlords, they know that the tenant is deceased. And guess what? They have re-rented the unit to somebody else. They're getting your HAP check, and they're getting the rent from this new tenant. Those are cases we want to make sure folks are prosecuted. That is outright fraud. Okay? So you will notify the owner of any breaches in the HAP contract. And one of the things that notice should indicate is the corrective action you expect the owner to take. And you can do one last-ditch effort, say, look, we notified you the first time telling you owe us this money. There weren't any other monies that we could offset that we would pay you. You still haven't paid us, so we're gonna sue you. So that is what you can do. Prescribe what you expect them to do in a deadline. And if they don't do it, then you're going to just take that to court. Here are some of your options with respect to if there's a breach of HAP contract, and you're already aware of this. This is all laid out in the HAP contract, so I don't need to really go through that. HUD's going to monitor the deceased tenants report on a monthly and a quarterly basis, so I want you to get in the habit of monitoring your deceased tenants report, because in instances where HUD determines that HAP has been overpaid, we're going to notify you in writing, and unfortunately, we're going to calculate how much was overpaid, and either your next month's admin fees are going to be offset by that amount if you haven't collected that money from that landlord. So I just want to let you know that there are going to be penalties in place if you are found to be housing dead people, paying HAP, and the folks are really dead. Now, the good news is that a lot of you have no deceased tenants. And for those of you that had deceased tenants, you followed up and you got them off the rent rolls, but you also need to go that extra step and make sure that you're getting that money back that was paid in error. Penalties for noncompliance. PHAs are going to be required to reimburse 100% of any uncollected owner overpayments to the HAP equity. from the admin fee equity account or non-federal funds. And this is standard language on the Section 8 side. And I just want to let you know you cannot use current year HAP for previous year's HAP. It was 1 year money. You can't take from the current and go back in the previous year. But everybody knows that. For housing, the Assistant Secretary has the authority to establish the monitoring, sanctions resulting from our monitoring efforts, and we could offset your monthly operating subsidy. Sanction and penalty appeals. If HUD should happen to sanction you, please always know with anything, anytime that you feel HUD has, been misguided or may have made a mistake, understand that you can always come in for appeal. So like if your local field office says, hey, you did something that wasn't quite right, you can appeal that to the Assistant Secretary here in Washington, D.C. Same thing with the sanctions and appeals process. Now I want to get into my favorite part, which is the debts owed to PHAs and termination. Remember Mary Contrary that owes $37.80? Well, we've created this national repository, and it's been available since September 25th, which allows housing authorities to enter debt information and adverse information about a family at the end of participation in a HUD program. And so this is based on the EIV system importing the EOP 5/8 into EIV from PIC and allowing you to enter information. So you basically have the ability to enter an amount that they owe you. If there was an adverse status when they left, like, okay, maybe you didn't evict them or terminate their assistance. They just voluntarily moved out, but they owe you money. Or that you have documented lease violations or non-compliance with program requirements, didn't come in due to annual re-exam or what have you. You have the ability to document that. If they file for bankruptcy, you can check a box for an indicator that they filed bankruptcy. Coming in April, you'll be able to now document that they entered into a repayment agreement. And if they defaulted into the repayment agreement, you can check the default box, and that will let the next housing authority know, hey, they did enter into a repayment agreement, but they defaulted. Now, the existing EIV users, if you have an occupancy voucher or occupancy public housing role, you will automatically be able to search for debt information for your applicants. This is why I say you can use EIV for applicants in limited scenarios. So what you should be doing, and keep in mind, this database relies on data from you, the PHA. So it's not complete at this point in time, but what you want to get into the business of doing is running the applicant's Social Security number in to see if they owe or if they have any adverse status in participating in another program. Only housing authorities have the ability to update and enter debt information. HUD does not have the ability to do that. Okay, so some tenants may decide, or former tenants call into HUD and say, hey, can you delete this out? We don't delete anything. Here at HUD, we delete nothing. The deletions come by you because you're entering information based on your records. Your executive director needs to decide who's going to enter information for your tenants. So in order for you to be able to add information into this database, you must have the program administrator role assigned to your user ID. Your user administrator at your housing authority goes into EIV user administration and basically checks the checkbox to add this role to your user ID, and the local HUD office approves that request. Okay, but you got to make sure you send in your EIV access authorization form signed by the ED or your designated supervisor authorizing you to have that access added to your current EIV access. Now, I just want to show you this right here. This is what your user administrator would see. And notice that the program administrator is a role. Most people are sending emails in saying, why can't I enter in information? You can't enter any information because you haven't been assigned the role. Okay? So if you check the checkbox, that doesn't assign the role. It requests for the role to be added, and it has to be approved by your field office, okay? So if you send in your EIV access authorization form, because what a lot of people did is they sent in their EIV access authorization form to the field office, but the user administrator did not go into the system and check the box. Because see, your field offices, what they're looking for is a pending PHA access request in their system. They don't see a pending access request. All they know is they received your form, but electronically, nobody on your PHA, your user administrator, hasn't gone in and checked the box. So you want to make sure that that step is implemented. Now, the responsibilities of the program administrator is to basically enter debt information, delete families from the listing of EOP families. So here's the deal. If you have a list of 100 EOP families and 95 of them left and there's no negative status, they don't owe you a debt, you just simply hit the delete button. It permanently erases them off the list. There's nothing to report. Now, there is a glitch in the system. If you delete the families today, they will reappear tomorrow. There's a glitch in the system. So that's why I sent out that message telling you don't delete any families from the list, because you're wasting your time, because there's a glitch and they're going to reappear tomorrow. And I apologize to housing authorities, because a lot of you went in there and so you're not subscribed to the PIH-RHIIP mailing list. So when I first became aware of the glitch on October 4th and sent out the message, you didn't get it. So now here it is 4 months later and you're asking me, hey, what about, why is this, I deleted these 5,000 people and they reappeared. And so now you're mad at me because you didn't get the email message. That's why you have to subscribe to PIH-RHIIP mailing list, okay? One of the things that is, and I think I sent it to you, but if I did not, the notice to applicants and tenants about the debts owed module is over at OMB for approval. That Federal Register notice was published yesterday, and the form says pending OMB approval, but we're going to take that watermark out of there, and so you can start using it. Even though it doesn't have the OMB number on it, it's not mandatory that you use it until it has the OMB number. So now here's how this module works. You're going to search for the former tenant, and again, the key here is to educate the families about this module so applicants know coming in the door, hey, if I leave this program owing money, I'm going to be reported. If I don't comply with the program requirements and I leave the program, or if I move out and I have issues, that information is going to be made available to every housing authority nationwide. So when you leave DC and you go to California, California is going to put in your social and know that you owe $3,780. You didn't comply with the lease. You had some criminal activity going on. And so the key here is so that you can make an informed decision at the time of application. Okay? So the notice that we have provides the family with what's collected, how it's used, and what are the consequences of that information. Okay? So we're asking you to provide the notice to applicants when they're applying in their little information packets. For the families that are in the program now, at the next annual re-exam, you only have to give it to them one time. Just give them the notice outlining what this debts owed module is so they know what it is. And then also, I'm going to be creating a little paragraph. So when you send out the notice of termination or lease violation or any type of termination notice, I'm going to give you a little clause that says, be reminded that this adverse action will be reported in HUD's EIV debts owed module, so that they know when they leave the program that this termination is going to be reflected in the database. So basically, to look for information, you're going to simply put in the family's 9-digit social security number. And let me see, did I skip over a screen? No, I didn't. You're entering in the 9-digit social security number and you're clicking get information, and I'll show you a screenshot in just a second. But the bottom line, the system is going to display one or two results, either a negative or a positive result. Your negative result means that at this time, no housing authority has reported anything about you. On the flip side, a positive result means that the PHA has reported information about you. So to access this information, you double-click on Search for Former Tenant. See this? Enter the Social Security number. See how easy this is? You can do this right at the time of application for anybody who's applying for assistance. Here is your negative results. No records found. That means no housing authority has entered information. Uh-oh. Looks like you owe $25,000. Failure to pay retroactive rent. Failure to pay retroactive rent, you already know that means they didn't report their income. But I want to thank you all for your feedback, because if you go to the Debts Owed to PHAs and Termination tab, I've added a couple more explanations. Family evicted. You wanted to be able to document family was evicted for public housing. Failure to report income. Those are two new reasons. Okay, we're trying to keep the list short and concise. So anything else, you can use non-compliance with program requirements. Okay. And so do understand that when you deny the assistance, give the applicant a copy of that debts owed report and let them know that their issue is not with you, but with the former housing authority to which they were residing under. So they need to resolve that issue with them. Okay? We're telling tenants disputes must be made within 3 years of the EOP date. Why 3 years? That's how long you have to keep the 5.8 in the documents for the EOP. So after 3 years, if you don't dispute, that's it. Okay? Entering and updating the debt information is very simplistic. Keep in mind when you log on to the system, you'll have this notice page here letting you know you're getting ready to enter debt information. Okay. Here you're going to be able to enter debt information up to $500,000. Again, bankruptcy indicator, reason for termination or negative status at the time of end of participation. Here's what the screen looks like. Here's your listing of all your families. Click here to enter information. All you have to do is click. And then here's your screen for entering the information. See how you just enter the dollar amount and select one of the reasons or multiple reasons. Hold down the control key. You can highlight more than one. See how simple that is? Now, of course, I do have an EIV tip sheet for debts owed that's going to be coming out in the next 2 weeks. So I will give you guidance on exactly how to do that. We did go over this during our September 24th, 2009 broadcast. Okay? One thing I want to point out, if you have entered into a repayment agreement with the family and they're paying, do not go back in here and say, oh, they now owe me $10,005. All you're doing is putting in the debt they owed when they left the program. Okay? We don't want you going in and reducing and reducing and reducing. You only can modify this thing 3 times, and the intent is you're only going to be making a modification if you made a boo-boo. You're not going in here and updating the new balance. And then updating information, again, you just simply click Update. And delete is self-explanatory. You click the delete button. And so these are just some screenshots to show you what these screens look like so you can become familiar with them. Now I know this is a lot of information to digest. That's why you have these binders. So what we want you to do is, take this information, go through it, look at the HUD guidance and notices that we provided, subscribe to the PIH-RHIIP mailing list. If you have questions, send them to the PIH-RHIIP.TA@HUD.gov, and we'll be sure to answer all of those questions. So I think we have time to take a couple questions. Rachel, did we have? I'm sorry, say again? Okay. Well, let me say this. I do know we have a lot of emailed inquiries that have come through, and what will happen with those inquiries is that they will be forwarded to me, and I will respond to your inquiries. For those of you that are here in our live studio audience, I'll be available to meet with you and answer any questions that you have before you leave. I do realize we're in D.C. and it's like rush hour traffic, so you may not want to get out in that traffic. So if you want to sit down and have a cup of coffee and talk, I'll be available because I know I'm not getting out in the traffic. So I want to thank you for your time. We appreciate you attending. I hope that you have enjoyed the training. The certificate of completion for those of you that are watching this session will be emailed to you tonight if you're subscribed to the PIH-RHIIP mailing list, okay? And if you're not on the list, you need to get on the list and stop saying, look, girl, I got this email forwarded to her. You need to tell her to get her own email message, okay? So with that, I want to say thank you, and I hope you have found this training enjoyable as well as informative, and know that HUD is here to help assist you with the successful implementation of the refinement of income and rent rule and EIV system. Thank you very much.